What up, y'all? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Benny Ivy. I'm 42 years old and was raised between Jackson and Rankin County my entire life. God put it on my heart to record this video and tell y'all a little story about my life. For those of you who are struggling in addiction, caught up in them gangs, caught up in that street life, and you don't think there's a way out, I'm here to tell you that there is. I'm living proof of it. I've always been what I refer to as a product of my environment. I come from a family full of drug addicts and outlaws. Well, until I was 9 or 10, me and my cousin Angel stayed mostly with my grandmother. We called her Granny, and Granny kept us shielded from a lot of the things that our parents did. I mean, the weed and alcohol we saw on an everyday basis, right? That was just normal life, everyday living where we come from. But Granny made sure that the coke and the meth and the heroin and the opiates and all those hard drugs were hidden from us. She kept us in church and in school, and she built in me a solid foundation of the beliefs that I hold dear today. I'm a Christian and I believe in the Bible, and I thank God every day that she planted those roots in me at an early age. Well, Granny died when I was like 9 or 10, and life drastically changed for me. I lived solely with my parents from then on out, and everything just went downhill. And don't get me wrong, man, I love my parents. I've always loved my parents, and I always will. They are my parents. God rest their souls. It just is what it is. Well, the drugs were no longer hidden. Everything was in plain view. I remember one morning when I was about 11 years old, my uncle barging in the bathroom on me while I was sitting on the toilet and told me to turn my head. So I turned my head, but I peeped, of course, and I watched him pull out his dope and his spoon and his needle. Mixed him a little shot right there at the bathroom sink. Did it. Splashed water on his face and smashed back out the bathroom. It scared the hell out of me, right? I'd never seen anything like that before. But from that moment forward, that became normal life. Everyday living for me. We moved around a lot, place to place, because bills were never paid. I can't count the nights we spent without electricity, water, or gas. I watched my parents sell our food stamps for dope, and we scrounged for food for the rest of the month. I went from making straight A's to barely skating to the 7th grade and failing from there on out. I was more or less raised to be outlaw and a junkie. At 15, I quit school so that I could ride around with my brother and my uncle so that we could break into houses and commit other crimes so that my family could smoke crack. That's how I was raised. That's the life that I grew up in. From kicking doors in to robbing crack dealers with baseball bats at 15, that's the life that I knew as a kid. I spent my juvenile years in detention centers, a couple trips to training school, and I became more and more infatuated with the gang member lifestyle, the gang member mentality. I guess I was searching for that sense of belonging and brotherhood that I thought I saw there. And in Jackson, back in those days, all the kids, black or white, screamed, "Gangsta Disciple" or "Vice Lord." It was the cool thing to do, and it was everywhere you turned, and I grabbed hold of that mindset and held it for most of my life. A gang member and a drug addict. Well, by the time I was 18, I started shooting dope. Crystal meth put me in a stranglehold and held me that way till I was 34 years old. It dominated my life. I might as well have gotten on my knees and worshiped the stuff. All that garbage, man. Meth, coke, heroin, benzos, opiates. All that garbage was put here by the devil himself to kill, steal, and destroy. That's all there is to it, man. It dominates your life, makes you a slave to it, period. Anyway, by the time I was 21, I caught my first felony as an adult. I got in a drunken rage at a Super Bowl party and beat a guy unrecognizable, caught an aggravated assault charge, and was put on probation a few months later. A probation that I never even reported to. The lifestyle that I was living, I couldn't run the roads and do dope every day and report to a probation officer, right? That didn't work for me, so I just didn't even report to that probation. Well, soon after that, in 97, I witnessed my best friend commit suicide with a pistol that we stole that morning. I jumped in the bed and cradled him in my lap until the police and ambulance got there. I was covered in blood. The bed was covered in blood. It was so much blood it soaked through the mattress to the box spring below. They pulled me out of the bed when they got there and did a gunshot residue test on everybody to make sure that nobody else had fired a weapon. And I was bad enough before that happened, right? But when he died that day, man, I was traumatized. I hit the streets like a juggernaut. I didn't care what happened to me anymore. I didn't care about nothing anymore. I kicked doors in, didn't care if anybody was home. I robbed people in broad daylight. Just nothing mattered to me anymore. So soon after that, my prison cycle began. I caught burglary charges in Hinds and Rankin County, and I began to do time as an adult. Well, my first stretch was 2 years, and it was a stretch of time in which I became familiar with and was blessed into a gang called the Simon City Royals. Well, back then, the Simon City Royals was united with the Gangster Disciples under the 6 Point Star. I hear all that's changed now, but that's how Royal originated in Mississippi, right? Well, I immediately began to cram as much gang lit as I could into my mind. I memorized 50 pages of Simon City Royal literature my first month as a Royal. Because from the beginning, I wanted to gain rank. I wanted notoriety. I wanted to be respected by my peers and known as a leader. Because let's face it, man, all I ever knew was the street life, right? So that's as high as my ambitions reached. A gang leader and a drug addict. Well, when I got out of prison after that first stretch, I started cooking crystal meth. I got caught up, went back to prison, did a couple more years, got back out, jumped back into the dope head first, got busted again, went back to prison. It's a cycle. It just chews you up and spits you out, chews you up and spits you out. And once you get caught up in that cycle, man, it's hard to get out of it. Hard to get out of it. As for me, I never even tried to do right. In prison, roll was my life. On the streets, meth was my life. Because I was that product of my environment. And I lived as if that was the only avenue I had available for me in life. A gang member and a drug addict. Well, by the time I got out of prison in 2008, I had taken up the rank of Central Mississippi Regional Captain and had organized between 100 and 150 Simon City Royals to attend meetings on the streets and to plug into the governing body that I had formed. I thought I made the big time, right? I had achieved that higher status that I was aiming at. That love and respect that I was searching for. The Royals around me, they put me on a pedestal. They treated me greater than. For a while. But God kicked that pedestal out from under my feet, man, and I thank him every day for doing so. A big investigation that started in Richland, Mississippi, that was trying to pin me with a RICO charge forced me to retire from the gang in 2008. And anyone who don't know what a RICO charge is, it's a charge placed on individuals who are conducting criminal activity while leading an organization. It carries 30 years or more, right? Well, when that happened, man, I was heartbroken. I was devastated. I lost everything that I had fought so hard to build. So I was heartbroken. I really was, man. But I got locked up on probation violation that year, and 2 feds from Chicago, along with a lieutenant from Richland Police Department, came to CMCF prison out there in Pearl to talk to me and showed me enough evidence and signed statements by some of those brothers that loved and respected me so much that I was forced to step away before I got thrown away. And like I said, I was heartbroken, man. But that situation going down, that happening to me was one of what I call God moments, right? We have them all throughout life and don't even realize it. A God moment is when God intervenes in your life to be sure that his will be done in your life. And looking back on my life, man, I can clearly see all the God moments that have taken place. He's always been faithful and he's always been with me. Always. Well, like I said, I got locked back up on a probation violation, but not a RICO charge. I got back out of prison in 2009. And I was no longer screaming royal, but I was still a drug addict, so my quality of life really didn't change. I ran the road, stayed place to place, stayed high every day, all of 2009 and 2010, until November 23rd, 2010. That was the last day I ever did or even saw crystal methamphetamine. Another big God moment in my life. I got arrested that day for the first time ever for a charge that I was actually innocent of, a charge that I was unaware of. Just a little bit of background on that. Me and a buddy of mine gave a girl a ride to Rankin County to pick another girl up. We'll call them girl 1 and girl 2. Well, these girls had been talking on the phone all night the night before, making a drug deal, right? Well, girl 1 was taking girl 2 some rock salt and passing it off as dope, while girl 2 was wearing a wire to set girl 1 up with the police, right? See, that's the type of garbage you have to look for, you have to put up with when you're living that lifestyle. You have to worry about somebody ripping you off, somebody setting you up, your brothers and sisters, whoever, signing state on you because they scared of going to jail. You have to worry about that garbage. You have to always look over your shoulder. It's a paranoid way to live, man. But anyway, we gave girl 1 a ride to Rankin County, to Richland, Mississippi, as a matter of fact, to pick girl 2 up. We get there, they go inside, they do their little business, they come back out, get in the truck. We pull out the neighborhood and get ambushed by Rankin County Sheriff's Department. They snatch us all out the truck, slam us on the ground, and arrest every one of us for conspiracy to deliver a controlled substance, conspiracy to possess a controlled substance, and possession with intent, because girl 2 still had the fake dope that they thought was real dope in her pocket. So off I go, once again, to Rankin County Jail. Well, I spent the first 2 days there asleep, getting the dope out of my system, sleeping it out of my system, because I was running wide open every day, right? Well, when I woke up, man, I got up off that rack and I walked to that cell door and I looked out that little rectangular window across the zone with that familiar scenery. I just felt worthless. I felt good for nothing. I thought that would be the scenery that I would see for the rest of my life at that moment. I think that was my breaking point. I'd finally hit my breaking point. I didn't want to live that life anymore. I didn't want to put needles in my arm. I didn't want to depend on dope. I didn't want to be homeless, staying place to place. I didn't want to live that life anymore, man. All those years I only existed. Never really lived life. Never knew how, man. I was fed up. I got on my knees in that cell and I begged God for one more chance at life. I begged him for one more opportunity to actually live a life. And I promised him that if he gave me that chance, that I would never let him down. Well, I spent the next 8 months in that county jail, and while I was there, I began to put my life down on paper. I began to write my life story. As of now, I've handwritten almost 800 pages. And the more I wrote, the more clearly I could see the life that I've lived, right? And a couple of big truths were shown to me. The first truth that I saw was the fact that God has always had my back. He's always been with me, and he's always been faithful to me, man. When I was neck deep in addiction, he was with me. When I was in the Thunderdome in Greene County, when I was in Greene County Prison, when I was in Castle Grayskull, 29D building, Parchment Penitentiary, in the middle of bangings, God was with me. He kept me safe. He kept me alive. He sustained me. Period. He's always been there. The second big truth that was shown to me was the fact that it's up to me to break that cycle, right? It's up to me to break that generational curse, that I don't have to be a product of my environment, that I can choose to live a better life. So that's what I did. July 2011, I was sent to Common Bond Treatment Center. The first time in my life I've ever been sent to a rehab instead of prison. And when I was released from that jail that day, I had made my mind up that I would never serve another minute behind bars. Ever. Well, I spent the next 8 months in treatment, determined to do whatever I had to do to start building a life for myself, right? I met a girl, beautiful girl, got a job, started going to church, and just tried to make a habit of doing the next right thing every day, make the next right decision every day, right? Well, that was 8 years ago. I've now been retired from Royal for 10 years, and I've been drug-free for 8. I married that beautiful girl that I met in rehab, and I legally adopted her daughter, my daughter, Valentine's Day of 2013. I became partner of that small company that I got a job for while I was in rehab. Me and my wife bought a beautiful 2,100 square foot house in Florence, off in the country. It's not a house, man. It's a home. Beautiful, stable, secure home for me and my family. We live a happy, healthy, fruitful life. Get up, go to work, go to church. I get up every morning at about 4:30. I work out, and I thank God for the life that He's given me, and I promise Him that any opportunity that is given to me to give back, that I will do so with a happy heart. I get up every Sunday morning and follow a big cargo trailer to Pearl, Mississippi, to the big movie theater to set up our church for service. We're mobile right now. We're called Move Church, and I'm on the setup team. My title there is actually the setup captain. I went from being a Simon City Royal captain to the setup captain at Move Church. Ironic how God works, right? I go every Thursday evening to the Rankin County Juvenile Detention Center, and I hang out with the boys there and talk to them about gangs and drugs, man. And it's such a blessing to be able to do that. I thank the Rankin County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Bailey and Judge Broom and them so much for allowing me to do that. It's such a blessing. The first week of October this year, I was flown to Washington, D.C. to attend a summit for an organization called Credible Messengers. We're going to try to bring that program down here to Mississippi. And what it is other men and women like myself who have been down them dark roads, who have been drug addicts, gang members, ex-convicts, whatever you want to call them. And we want to try to help these young men and women that are headed down them roads. We want to help them to make better decisions so that they don't have to go down them roads that we went down on, right? Because I feel like if you're able to climb out of those pits of addiction, street life, gangs, whatever it is that you're involved in, if you're able to climb out of those pits, it's your duty and your obligation to turn around and lend a helping hand to the next person climbing out. That's being 100. That's being real, right? So I'll close with this, man. If you don't listen to anybody, if you don't take advice from anybody, and you don't think there's any way that you can get out of that lifestyle you're living in, take it from somebody who's been there and done that, man. Take it from somebody who's lived an entire lifetime of heartache, disappointment, tragedy, poverty, addiction, gangs, prison, isolation. Take it from somebody who's been there and done that, man. There is a way out. There's a way out, man, and you can do it. All you have to do is choose to live a better life, put in the footwork, and lean on God. And you can do it, man. If I can do it, anybody can do it. That's a fact. I appreciate y'all taking the time to listen to this video, man. Like I said, if you or somebody you know is struggling in them pits, man, you don't have to stay there. That's real. Much love, y'all. God bless.